Thank you all for joining me today. In this paper, we talk about PD practitioners' role in bringing organizational change when there are vulnerable populations dependent on the organization. The complexity due to vulnerable populations dependency requires careful consideration, which we examine in this paper. We ask, how should PD practitioners work towards institutional change to support vulnerable groups who are dependent on the organization to gain more power and control? The particular context of our work involves anti-trafficking organizations in Nepal and trafficking survivors supported by those organizations. We are friendly outsiders working with actors within the structure. From our initial inquiry, we found that the organizations were heavily reliant on donor funds. The reliance meant that donor agencies influence the kinds of programs designed to support the sister survivors. Organizations competed for the limited number of donor grants, requiring them to highlight the deficiencies and needs of the sister survivors. The belief of deficiency was also imbibed by the sister survivors. We also noted the limited prospect for the sister survivors outside the shelter home. Moreover, the organization's dependence on external donor agencies meant that the sister survivors had limited voice within the organization. The sister survivors are materially dependent on the organization, but that does not implicate that we ought to highlight the deficiencies as a more general characteristics of the sister survivors. We find the prevalence of deficiency narrative problematic. Most critically, it had eroded the sister survivors' sense of belief and the organization's belief about what the survivors could do. We needed to contest the power dynamics in order to support the sister survivors to have a greater voice, both within the organization and outside it. Political change is necessary to contest the power dynamics. In this space, scholarship and practices of agonism are relevant. Particularly, DeSalvo presents three tactics for agonism. The first involves revealing the hegemony of various forces influencing the setting. The second tactic calls for PD practitioners to reconfigure aspects of what has been excluded currently and seek to include them. The third tactic involves articulating a collective that challenges or provides alternative to dominant practices. These tactics have the potential to make existing power dynamics both visible and contestable. However, we note two issues when seeking to support agonistic approaches in structures of dependency. Actors are not on equal grounds in terms of power and agency, a condition that is challenging in contexts where one group is dependent on the other. Furthermore, there are serious costs in undertaking agonistic approaches, with costs higher for vulnerable groups who may not have the support mechanism if conflicts escalate. Noting these issues, we argue the need to bridge the gap to agonistic approaches by making incremental moves, allowing for change to occur without threatening the existing structures of dependency. In the paper, we highlight three configurations that helped us bridge the gap to where the organization was and to what agonism required. First, we began by seeing the relationship between the organization and the sister survivors as interdependent. This led us to explore existing resources and skills as valuable assets for the sister survivors and the organization. We uncovered two assets possessed by the sister survivors. The first was their crafting skills. All the sister survivors were learning the skills as part of the NGO's reintegration program. Similarly, during the study, I had noticed a strong bond between the sisters. The shared living situation, the awareness of the past, the shared work, and the mutual support they provided each other had fostered a strong bond between them. The mutual bond could be a source of social support within and beyond the organization. When we presented the findings after identifying the assets to both the staff members as well as the sister survivors, staff members suggested different approaches to build upon those assets. A technological component was present in all of their suggestions. They saw technology as a valuable component in continuing our co-engagement. The sister survivors also wanted to learn technology. Taking a step back, we note that the way technological aspiration bridges the gap to agonism is because technological skills is seen as being more esteemed by the staff members and is seen as being more useful by both the staff members and the sister survivors. By serving the technological aspirations, we aim to make the sister survivors more powerful in the organization than they would have been with crafting. Considering the sister survivors' wishes and the NGO's preference for technology, we decided to move forward with computing. However, simply introducing computers has the potential to undermine the existing assets. Rather, we introduced computing in the context of the sister survivors' crafting practices through a tailored voice-annotated web application called Hamro Kala, which means our craft in Nepali. The web application was introduced through a 10-day workshop. Building on the workshop, we replicated and extended further technological introductions. We incrementally designed activities to introduce the sister survivors to other widely available technologies such as Google Search, Google Translate, and Wikipedia. These explorations created opportunities for the sister survivors to explore broader possibilities and alternatives. For instance, during the Wikipedia editing session, discussion ensued on the academic trajectory and effort required. A sister survivor who was in the 7th grade wanted to become an accountant. She worked on translating the chief financial officer page on Wikipedia from English to Nepali. This led to a group discussion where we covered the courses that she needed to take in her 10th grade, the program that she could enroll in after her 10th grade, and the colleges in Nepal that she could join for a bachelor's in accounting. The success of the workshops, as perceived by the staff members, led to a discussion on the possibility of training the sister survivors to become computer trainers in the future. In this way, it positioned the sisters as individuals who could master a difficult skill, that of using computers. By showcasing their capabilities of successfully using computers, the sister survivors were able to push back on some of the prevalent limiting beliefs. For the sisters too, the workshop led to envisioning the possibility of pursuing office jobs with more computer training. As we sought to move forward, we noted that the seat of power in the organization is in funding. Therefore, if we want to move towards agonism, we ought to think about how to bring the sister survivors to that seat of power. We'd seen the staff members be appreciative of the sister survivors' technical skills, as well as their ability to learn difficult skills. So we built upon this positive outlook to explore the possibility of including the sister survivors in designing projects that would then be proposed to potential donors. However, we heard several deficit perspectives from the staff members, as you can see here. Through incremental and collective exploration, we eventually co-designed a modified form of Snakes and Ladders, a game quite popular in Nepal. Within the playful setting, the game created opportunity for the sisters to share their knowledge and their aspirations and concerns about their future. At the same time, the game encouraged the staff members to support, reflect, and add on the sister survivors' knowledge. We built in mutual elements of supporting one another during the game. We hypothesized that the questions and the discussion can support the sister survivors in slowly sharing and contributing to project design without significantly disrupting the current process. Taking a further step back, we note 3 implications from our study. First, a focus on the dependent group's asset can illuminate interdependency between the groups. It allowed us to establish collaborative entanglement that shifted actors from a direct adversarial position towards interdependent exploration of collective potential futures. Critically, collaborative entanglement complicates the us versus them perspective that is central in adversarial stances. Second, we note that what has been excluded or ignored is highly contingent, and that configuring its inclusion requires careful consideration to avoid reinforcing existing power dynamics. In particular, the reconfiguration must enable the actors to see broader and alternative possibilities. For instance, initially we identified the sister survivors' crafting skills as an asset. Crafting is highly contingent on the infrastructure made available by the organization, And reconfiguring it as a central part of the sister survivors' reintegration journey could have increased their dependency on the organization, while also limiting the possibilities they saw for themselves. Instead, we built upon their crafting skills to introduce technology, whose knowledge in and of itself became an asset to the sister survivors. The introduction of technology supported the sister survivors as well as the staff members in considering alternative futures beyond what had been presented to the sister survivors. Third, a commitment to asset-based design entails forming a collective that appreciates and engages with assets available to them. However, how the collective is formed and positioned requires careful consideration of the structure of dependency. A narrow formulation of collectivity may result in the exclusion of actors who are on some level aligned with the overall objective. A rigid conceptualization may fail to account for uncertainties. PD practitioners thus must engage in an ongoing process of forming and reforming the collective. While we saw the need for changes within the organization, we also saw the organization as a valuable resource for the sister survivors. Considering this, we included the staff members in the collective by involving them in the decision-making process throughout our engagement. We challenged the staff members' deficit-focused perspective by emphasizing the sister survivors' assets, but importantly, without excluding them. This allowed us to gain organizational buy-in to the extent where we could propose a different collective, one in which the sister survivors could also be involved in the organization's core functions, that of writing project proposals. In summary, we believe that agonism is necessary in bringing institutional change. However, in structures of dependency, PD practitioners have a significant role to play. Particularly, we argue that it is critical to take incremental steps that bridge the move to agonistic design. We look forward to discussing the work further. Thank you for your time.